What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be taking a look at Gorgon and Medusa. So let's see what we've got going on. Let's check it out. As promised, today we'll be taking a look at Medusa and Gorgon. Let's see what we've got going on. Taking a look at the package, we have this deluxe packaging 2-pack. You've got the Inhumans logo down at the bottom, logo at the top. Marvel Legends, you got the figures in there, you can see them. I see some extra heads, some extra hands, some weapons. So you've got some things packed in there. Flip it to this side, you get to see the images of Medusa and Gorgon and a Marvel Legends logo. Flip it to this side, you'll see the names and a smaller image at the bottom. Flip it to the back, we can take a look at some slightly expanded images. You've got your important information at the bottom. There's your blurb. Queen Medusa sits atop the throne of Attilan with the prehensile hair gifted her by exposure to the Terrigen mist, along with fellow member of Inhuman royal family Gorgon, who can create kinetic shockwaves with his hooved feet. Back to the front for one last look. Let's get him out of the box. Fresh out of the box, this is a cool set, and Gorgon looks so cool, man. Like, he's super tall, he's got these crazy hooved feet. As an action figure, it just looks pretty awesome. Look, we'll go through it, we'll get closer, of course, but I am impressed, first look at how this figure has come out. Now, both of these were a pain to get to stand in place on here on the turntable. They have very odd centers of gravity, both of them, right? Medusa clearly because of the hair, Gorgon just a large figure with a big upper portion, and then these hoofed feet. So I did face some challenges there. That's something that you figure out, once you get it on the shelf. It's just try a little more patience this time around. Let's take a closer look. Moving in closer, we can get a good look here, and look, what a great looking face sculpt. He's got this great expression. You only get the one, so you're limited there. They do give that in-between sort of expression, so I guess to appease both crowds. Of course, as I say, if I'm only getting one, I want it to be uber expressive, but I understand that not everybody agrees with that, and a lot of people would prefer a neutral face. They at least meet in the middle, and we get this. And it looks so good. So you've got a lot going on here. Not a whole lot of detail as far as wash goes. You don't get any of that through the hair. But it doesn't really take away from it. The aesthetic of this is pretty solid. You come down here. You've got the overlay cloth down here. This, again, not a whole lot going on with the paint detailing. It just sort of has a burlap type look to it. But it does have some texture in there, so that comes through. You can see that in solid detail. Going down to the arms, you do get that hair painted on, so that at least gives you something to break it up. They could have just left that plain, which would have been a huge disappointment, so I'm glad that they didn't. And then you do have the cuffs down at the wrist, which are a pretty flat color, a little bit of marbling in that silver gray tone down there, but I think it looks good. It gives it a more metallic look in that sense. And then you do get a few dings in there just to give them a little sense of battle damage. The main costume, pretty easy, pretty solid though. Two-tone, it's got good color. All in all, I'm really digging the overall aesthetic here. You come down through the legs, again, lacking some paint there. Not a whole lot going on. You would love to see some extra detail in there, but it's really not taking away from the aesthetic of the figure. Like, I'm really digging this and how it looks. We always see these and say, look, if you added a little paint, do a little wash, it's gonna look so much better, of course, but it does look good, so I'm happy here. For your hands, you do get a set of fists, and then you do have your open and grasping hands. And these cuffs are a separate piece, so be mindful of that, but also if you want to remove them, you do have that option. He does come with the mace. You can see here the grasping hand does hold it pretty firmly in place. I thought it was going to maybe be a little too open for the hand, but yeah, it fits right in. This is a separate piece, so if you would prefer not to use that, you do have that option. For your articulation, the head will look down to their chin, not quite touching the chest. The collar does limit you a little bit there. The head will look up and back to there, so you get a little bit of an angle, but again, the collar being your hindering factor there, you do get plenty of rock in there and movement side to side, and it will go all the way around if you remove the collar piece there. Arms with the collar go up to about there, and then you can see that sort of bounces up a little bit, and then they'll go back to about there. Same thing, bounces that up a little bit. Removing the piece, you'll see that does give you extra room down there. Chin will touch the chest, and then the head will go up and back to there. And of course, from there, the arms will move all the way around. They'll go up to about there. You have that upper bicep cut. You are single jointed with a pin at the elbow, nothing at your forearm, and then a hinge at the wrist. You do have your basic ab crunch and hip swivel. Legs will kick up to right about there. Not terrible. These are really long legs on a big dude here. Back to about there, and then out to there. Upper thigh cut. You are double jointed at the knee, pinless as well. You do have a calf cut there right above the heel for the hoof, and then you do have your hinge and swivel at the ankle of the hoof. For comparison, here he is standing next to a variety of characters, just to give you an idea of where he's going to fit in. So you can see the Gamerverse Juggernaut there. He comes in smaller than that. He actually sits right around the size of the Hulk, just a little bit taller. So that gives you just a little bit of an idea of the size of this guy. Moving over to Medusa, we can take a look here. So the first thing that stands out is the amount of hair compared to previous figures that Hasbro's put out for Medusa. This one by far has the most hair going on. They also included like a point of articulation in the hair, which gives you a little bit of option, helps that balance because, as I said, I mean, there's an odd center of gravity for a figure like this because of how much is going on there. But we can take a look at the head sculpt here. This is a little bit different, so like a couple of other options, Kang specifically, they did include faceplates as opposed to alternate heads, which I'm not totally against the idea of faceplates. I am marginally concerned because the entire line has not featured faceplates, right? So if you want to get into like head swaps and stuff like that, those types of things are going to become issues. But at this point, if it's a few figures here and there, I see no harm, no foul, right? It does give you an option to be able to change out the face or the expression. So if I'm not getting the two heads, at least this go round, I've got some options. So for the first faceplate, you can see here, you do get more of an angry expression. So I like it, you know, nothing crazy. I don't know, these are coming off a little softer looking. I'm assuming different materials, different techniques, because it's not a full sculpt, right? It is just the plate. Just like with Kang, you can just pop that off. You'll see that weird hole in the face. Yeah, don't worry, it's not mildly disturbing at all. And then you can swap that on there, and then that gives you just sort of a stern look. I like this one a little bit better, I think, and that kind of contradicts everything I'm always saying about expressive faces. But yeah, I think in this case, I may be leaning towards the neutral expression. I don't know. I'll take a look, see how it balances out with the rest of the Inhumans and go from there. For the rest of the design of the figure, fairly basic, right? You've got purple and black and then just the skin there. So not a whole lot needed to go into this. It does come out a little flat in some areas, but all in all, I mean, I think this is a pretty solid version of Medusa, and it will absolutely replace the Walgreens one I previously had. For your hands, you do get a set of fists. And you get a set of open hands. And the cuffs are removable here as well, so you do have that option. Also, the boot cuff is a separate piece, so you can move that if so desired. I am a little weary about that because I think of older figures like Cyclops where, like the bands just wouldn't stay in place over time. It feels like we're almost kind of going back to that, right? Like, this is good right now, it's in place. A year from now, it's going to be down around the ankles all the time. For your articulation, as you may have speculated based on the amount of hair here, you're going to be limited in some areas. The head will look down to there, but then you get all of that back there, and you don't even need to worry about going back. You will get some movement in there, and you can go side to side. Again, though, with this, I mean, any kind of downward look is going to be a little bit harder to pull off in your display. You will have just a ton of space back there. She is on a butterfly, so you do get good range in the arms back and forth. Arms will work all the way around. You just got to get around some of those hair curls. And the arms do go up to about there, upper bicep cut. You are double jointed, pinless at the elbow. Nothing at the forearm, hinge at the wrist. For the upper torso, you do have that ball joint in there, so that gives you all of that great rotation around. And then you do have the lower ab crunch, which is the right combination, so thank you. Legs do kick up to about there, back only to about there, and then out to about there. Upper thigh cut, double jointed pinless at the knee. Nothing at your boot, hinge and swivel at the ankle. And as I mentioned earlier, you do have that point of articulation in the hair, so that does give you the ability to move that into different positions depending on what you're trying to do. So I like that you get that option. I'm certainly curious how that's going to work out in the display. For comparison, here she is next to our Walgreens Medusa and Black Bolt here. And you can see, I mean, this is clearly a great upgrade. However, both of these Medusa figures are very difficult to get standing in place. This one, the hair was at least a little bit longer, so you just kind of use that as a crutch. New Medusa, working on getting that figured out. Alright folks, well there you have it. There is your Marvel Legends Inhumans Medusa and Gorgon 2-pack. Freshly coming out along with another Inhumans 2-pack. So I like that. I like the succession. Is this a hostage pack? Some may say they didn't need another Medusa. I would say you do need a new Medusa because this Medusa is better than that Medusa, and that is what I have to say about that. It's fine, right? I really don't mind the 2-packs as long as they actually make sense, and to me this makes sense and seems like a worthy enough upgrade. Gorgon's cool, he may be plain in some areas, could use a little extra detail here and there, but at the end of the day it's a pretty damn cool action figure, so gets my money. Anyway, not a whole lot else to say about this other than I think it's a pretty solid 2-pack. I like it, and if you're looking for it and you need some more Inhumans in your collection, this is one to get. That's the 2 cents, folks. I do appreciate you checking out the video. Of course, you can always find me on any of these socials down here. Most importantly, though, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe below. And until next time, take it easy. Backwards. Hey, faceplate. There in the... Damn it.